because of the health care Minnesota provided to his children when they really needed it. He was down in Texas. He wasn't happy with the way things were going. So he moved up here, and he stayed up here because of the way Minnesotans have treated him and the way the Minnesota healthcare industry has taken care of his kids. So I think this is a really cool thing, and I'm glad John got together with sodastick.com. The interesting thing here, John, and I might be writing a column about this here soon by the time people read this, is even if the disaster happens and Butler's traded for not great value and Tibbs gets fired, I will say at least the organization isn't completely hopeless, even if those things happen. I mean, Cat is still a great young player and maybe just a little bit of defensive awareness away from being a dominant player. And Wiggins, for all the things we rip him about, or I rip him about, 2 years ago at the age of 21, he averaged 23.6 points per game, which is close to historic. There is still some hope here, even if this segment of the franchise goes kaput.
Right. I agree. I've kind of had some discussions with a few people internally. I was kind of, when the Jimmy Butler practice issue blew up and all the reporting was coming out about the way he conducted himself, and I said publicly I thought it was really one from a just on the court, eliminate Flip Saunders, eliminate Malik Sealy, eliminate some of those misfortunes that have come across this franchise. From on the court as a moment in time, I thought it was one of the lowest that this franchise has been in because, and I got a lot of pushback. Well, what about David Kahn? What about this? What about that? And I said that, it was clearly worse with David Kahn and sustained that way, but the stakes were lower because you were a bad team that just stayed bad. And you were kind of buried, but now you're a really good team with hopes of being even better. And this has kind of thrown everything up in the air. But to get back to all of your point, I think you're right in terms of they do have now Karl Anthony Towns locked up for 6 years. They have Wiggins locked up for the next 5. They have Tyus Jones. They have Josh Okogie and Keita Bates-Diop, who are both good, promising young guys. Credit to Tom Thibodeau and Scott Layden for those draft picks. They have enough talent around that they will have to take a step back, but it doesn't have to be complete tear down and rebuild. Let's say you get a deal done with Miami and you get Josh Richardson, another really good young piece. I mean, not all-star, not dominant player like Jimmy Butler, but someone that can really help you and can be a starting caliber player. And so if you do that, and you do recalibrate a little bit, the step back doesn't have to be all that big, because we all think. And Towns still has to show a few things, but we all think that he's already an all-NBA, all-star player. Those are hard to find in the league. You have one of them. Just find a way to build around him more and help him kind of mature into the franchise face that you need. I mean, he's a 22-year-old who has probably made some mistakes as he's tried to assert himself and become a leader and do all of these things, but help him through it instead of just grumbling about it, instead of just whining and pissing and moaning about this guy doesn't do this or this guy doesn't do that. Help him and show him the way, and then you can be fine that way. I think absolutely.
And that to me is the biggest disappointment about Jimmy Butler, is Butler coming in and saying he's a leader and he cares about winning. They're not really, and just berating these guys instead of trying to make them better. Yeah, I mean,
Kevin McHale said the same thing on NBA TV the other night, was just saying like, look,
He got that from me, though.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But yeah, he's just like, that's the issue here is if he has been gone for 3 weeks and has been pointed in his frustration and annoyance and criticism of these guys for months and months, is that the guy that you want, leading your team? Now Jimmy's a great player, and there are a bunch of guys on the team who love Jimmy, who want to follow him, who respect him and appreciate his work ethic. And it's not just the Timber Bulls that like him. There's other guys who do. But just with the way that this has all played out, that was the other frustration for me with Tom Thibodeau the other day talking in Milwaukee. It was, he talked about how the importance of leadership is uniting and not dividing. That's not what's happening here. Like, this is not leadership. Like, this is all, Jimmy was doing all of this stuff to try and make it difficult for the Wolves to keep him. And so that was calculated on his part. And so even if there were some players who said, yeah, this is what we need, way to go, Jimmy, there are some players, the most important players, right, who said, is this the example that you want to be setting? And so that's where all of the disconnect comes in, and that's where the frustration with, there's this sort of feeling around these guys that just says we have to be tougher, and this is the way to do it, and these guys are soft, and we're going to show them, and that's not going to work, and it's not working right now. So it really has been interesting to watch how Jimmy has tried his best to blow this entire thing up and make it as difficult as possible, and Tom Thibodeau gives him zero accountability for that.
Amazing. Let's get to a few Twitter questions and some opening night thoughts. First of all, tell me about your deal with The Athletic. And as I always say on this podcast, John and I both work for subscription-based sites. We survive because of subscribers. You can subscribe to the Star Tribune. You subscribe to The Athletic. I think you can probably afford to do both. If you can, we do appreciate it.
Yeah, so we have at theathletic.com/JonPod, JONPOD, all lowercase. When you get there, you get 40% off The Athletic. That's less than $3 a month for hundreds of stories a week on all the major sports. And you guys all know now, if you've listened to this podcast, what we do. We're a subscription-based site. There's no ads, no pop-up videos, nothing that really gets in the way of your experiencing quality, in-depth coverage of your favorite teams, athletes, and storylines. If you subscribe, or if you've even seen some of my stuff on Twitter, we're all over this Jimmy Butler saga. We've broken news. We've been ahead of the game a lot with myself, Shams Charania, Sam Amick, a bunch of people that have really kind of, Britt Robson, have poured in a lot of analysis and reporting on this subject and a lot of others that go on, not just with the Timberwolves, with the Wild, with the Vikings, with the Lakers, with the Warriors, with NHL coverage all around the place, Major League Baseball, Jason Stark, Ken Rosenthal, Peter Gammons. Your subscription of $2.99 a month gets you access to all of it, not just the Minnesota stuff, but all of it. There's literally too much stuff to be read for any one subscriber. We get as many as 700 news stories published every week across local and national platforms. So go to theathletic.com/JonPod, JONPOD, all lowercase, for 40% off the first year of a subscription. That's $2.99 a month for incredible coverage of more than 40 markets in the U.S., Canada, and European soccer. Coverage that goes beyond game recaps and news updates and provides smarter analysis and deeper perspective about the teams and stars in every league. So that's theathletic.com/JonPod, JONPOD.
Let's go to Twitter questions. Kevin Gustafson, how does Tibbs still have a job besides the money aspect?
Well, look, it's easy to just say, well, just fire him. That's an easy thing to say. Sometimes it's harder to do. Given the start of the season, you blow it up. If you fire Tibbs, not only do you fire Tibbs, you have to find a new GM. Scott Layden is not capable of doing that job. And so you would have to find someone else to be a president of basketball operations, and you would have to find a new head coach. And you can elevate Ryan Saunders. You could, but he's 32 years old, and that would be an incredibly difficult circumstance for him to inherit a job that I think he's being groomed for eventually. And it feels like if you want to give him the job, put him in a position to succeed. And I wonder if that's the way, if that's the best way to do it. And so finding someone right at the start of the season is difficult to do. And Glenn has been a guy in the past who, when things are going poorly, it's almost like he circles the wagons a little bit more and tries to say, am I doing everything I can to help this guy do the job that I hired him to do? And so he's stuck with David Kahn for a long time. He's stuck with a lot of guys who maybe should have been fired a lot longer than a lot of owners would. And so I think that he wants to, at the end of the day, feel like he gave Tom Thibodeau every chance he could. And so maybe they start the season with Jimmy, and if it doesn't go well, like Tom Thibodeau was telling him, it'll be fine. Now that Jimmy Butler's back, everything will be fine. If it's not fine, maybe that's something that would cause Glenn to act. I don't know, but I'm sure the money is somewhat of an issue. But what has to be determined is what is in the best long-term interest of this franchise. And if Glenn doesn't think that Tom is the guy for best suited for the long-term interests, then a move has to be made. I don't think that he has completely made that decision yet, and he's going to take his time with it.
Is Scott Layden not capable of doing that job because he's not good at that job, or because he's not experienced enough at that job?
Well, he has experience. I mean, he was a GM with the Knicks, and that didn't go well either.
Right.
I think he's a good talent evaluator. I think that he works hard at his job to scout and to kind of beat the bushes and find the right people. But he's not a communicator. He is not someone who can lay out a vision and get people to buy in and follow it. He's also, what Glenn hired him to be was a guy who could have a collaboration with Tom Thibodeau, and then in times when things were not going well, stand up and say, Tibbs, we have to do it another way. And he's not that guy. Like he is in lockstep with Tom Thibodeau. He is, just one of those people who is not going to challenge the status quo, is not going to kind of rock the boat in any way or stand up in a meeting and say, this is not working, let's do something else, and put his foot down. That's just not ever been his personality or his strengths. And again, really nice guy. I think he has a good eye for talent, but I don't think he's a leader of a franchise or of a front office.
From Jeff German, rumor has it that Cat and Jimmy had a sit-down talk. Is that true?
I haven't confirmed that. I had been told that Jimmy wanted to do that. Whether that has happened or not, I'm not sure. Now, Jimmy did have a session where he talked to some players with the team about him trying to put separation between his situation and his teammates. He wants to tell them, hey, I have your back. This is about management. This is about what I thought was promised to me that I'm not getting, so I'm with you all. Whether Cat was there or receptive to that, I'm not sure. So we all know that relationship has been a contentious one, or maybe not even contentious, but just disconnected. And so I don't have any signs that there's been some sort of understanding reached between the two of them. And so I think they're going into the season basically in the same place that they've always been. Also
from Jeff, how concerned should we be that Cat doesn't seem to be the primary concern of this front office?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a concern. Yeah, I mean, there's you don't want to placate Cat. You don't want to enable him or kowtow to him or things like that that would maybe have an adverse effect in terms of his development. But at the same time, it's clear that Tom Thibodeau's chosen guy is Jimmy Butler, and that the world revolves around Jimmy, and that world is breaking apart right now, and Tom Thibodeau has done nothing to say that or show that he has any issues with the way that Jimmy Butler has conducted himself. And so that, if you don't think that Cat doesn't see that, if you don't think that that message is being delivered loudly and clearly of what is acceptable behavior and what isn't, it is. And so that should be a concern in terms of the long-term sustainability of this whole thing. I mean, as great as Jimmy is, and as much as he helped last year from a winning standpoint, he doesn't have the 5-year deal right now. The 5-year deal is Karl Anthony Towns.